Hello everyone and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. We're starting a new project today. The P2 Neptune is almost done. I just put on the clear coat, the semi-matte coat on it, so all I got left to do is put on some exhaust streaks, clear coat over those, and then the final assembly. So that kit should be done in the next few days. So I want to go ahead and start prepping and getting my next project ready. So I've already decided on what it is, and it's going to be the Academy 1/16 or 1/32 scale F-16I Sufa from Academy. This is one of my favorite F-16s from foreign service. I love the color scheme of it, the conformal fuel tanks, the extra radar on the spine, or the electronics spine on the back. It's like Israel, after they got our F-16s, they're like, hey, can you pimp my ride for me? So we're going to go over the inbox review, get all this done, and then go over the aftermarket that I have. I do have one more thing of aftermarket en route, and that's from Isra Cast, and that is the correction set for some of the parts that are in the kit. So I'm waiting on that. That's waiting in Tel Aviv right now, so we'll see how long it takes to get here. But those are all external parts, so not too much of a worry on any of the interior components. So I'm going to get the camera turned around so we can take a look at this kit. So I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, so I got the box on the bench now, got the plastic taken off, and just looking at the top of the box art. Box art looks great. I've always loved also the paint job of the Sufa. It kind of reminds me of the Iron Eagle F-16 paint job. So I've always liked that paint job. So very nice artwork from Chang Hume of 2009. So moving on to the side of the box, we got some nice pictures of the built model along in here. Get a photo etch fret, and then some more detailed pictures of all the different angles of this kit. So some very nice pictures. And then moving to the other side, again, we have an option of 4 schemes for this build right here. Difference is the tail flash on this. So I'll have to decide on which one we're going to use for this. And then opening up this box, we see that we're greeted with a lot of plastic. We have a box inside a box. So gonna get this all off. This is not like what the Tamiya one has, where it's a transfer box, but this one is nice and protects everything. Alright, first thing that we're greeted with on this box while opening this up is a nice poster, if I can get this to cut. Alright, some nice, get a nice poster here of the actual aircraft. That is very nice. Get that flattened out, you can hang it up on your wall. And on the reverse side is your color callouts, which is very nice. Very nice and large. I mean, this is huge. Probably this is the largest color call out I have ever seen on here. So that's some very nice detail on there. Get that rolled back up. Alright, so first we'll go through the instructions. Again, nice little blurb on the front. Necessary tools. Your color call outs using GSI, Creos, Aqueous, Hobby Color, Mr. Color, Life Color, Humbrol, Testers, and Model Master. Like you all know, I like to use MRP paints, and they actually have the MRP set for these colors. I don't think the set is available anymore, but you can still buy the colors separately, so I still need to order that stuff. But starting off, alright, starting with your ejection seats, and then getting all that on your instrument panels and your cockpit, moving all that, getting your ejection seats in, your side panels for your ejection or for your cockpit, and then after that you're starting your intakes, getting your intake in. There's a hole that you need to drill on here, and then you're adding in a vent over here. And then the next page, you're adding in more parts for your tail, your rear landing gear or main landing gear section, and then adding more parts to the intake and your engine fan blade right here. Then after that, you're starting off with your spine, getting that done. This is one of the pieces that is included in the correction set from Isracast, so I will be waiting to get that added on. Hopefully by the time that I get to this stage, that set has come in. So, and then after that, you're adding in your conformal fuel tanks and your gun pod or your gun bracket. And then moving on, you're getting your cockpit in, sandwiching in your fuselage halves. You have a few holes here to drill. That's for the strakes that go on the top. And then you're getting your nose landing gear added and some struts and your nose landing gear door, and then your main landing gear door. There are some decals that go on the main landing gear, so make sure you dog ear the this page of the instructions, so that way you know to come back to it after you're all done. And then you're just adding more parts, your doors and all that. I do have the aftermarket landing gear set from Ares, and also the Wolfpack cockpit set for this aircraft, so we will be going through that at the end of this video. So, and then continuing on, you're adding in all your belly parts, some sensors all along here, and then the part that covers up the main landing gear piece, and then your tail hook and some strakes for your fuselage. And then you're adding in your engine. I do have the aftermarket engine for this as well. It does have something about being careful on the bottom view, adding in PE parts all along here, and then we're adding in our speed brakes. You have the option of having that open or closed or open. Then you're adding in your horizontal stabilizers, elevators, and you have some static discharge pieces to add, which will be very small, but those will be a very nice touch to it. And then you're adding all those in, or those were the wings, and then your stabilizers here, and then you have your flaps for here, and then moving on, adding in your vertical stabilizer and rudder. Then you have your nose radar and your nose cone with some metal parts for your forward pitot tube and your AOA sensors. So the nose is two separate parts. Yeah, I will be doing the nose closed. I will not be doing it open, but you do have the option to have it open. Then continue on, you're adding in your instrument panels and the instrument combings that go on the top for the pilot and the Wizzo. I don't know what the Israeli Air Force calls it. I know the U.S. Air Force calls it the Wizzo. The Navy calls it a Rio. They do the same job. But anyways, and then you're starting to work on the canopy, adding in more detailed parts to your canopy. And then this kit does come with a boarding ladder, which is a nice touch. These right here you're going to want to leave off until the very end if possible, because these are painted gray versus the rest of the fuselage. So that's going to be made a lot easier to paint if you keep those on till the very, or off until the very end. Then you're adding more photo wedge parts and some more sensors and stuff like that onto here. Then continuing on, you got your missile rail for your wingtips, your pylons, getting all those on, more pylons, and then we start with the weapons, adding in the weapons. I do have a couple aftermarket weapons we'll be going over later on in this video. So just keeping on going on, your triple ejector racks, your GPUs and all that, and you have different options for how you're going to load this bird up. So continue on, you have your 300-gallon centerline fuel tank, and then your 370 and 600-gallon fuel tanks. And then you also have your AXQ-14, I honestly do not know what that is for. I don't know if that's a travel pod or what that is. So, and then you have your AMRAAM 120B, your Python 4, which is your short range missile. AIM-120 is your medium range missile, and then you're adding those to the outside. You have your Lightning II targeting pod and also the Lantern pod right here. And then you're adding those into the fuselage. Then you have a couple pilot figures to do if you want to do those, and then you have your main stencil common decal location on here for the side or top and bottom profile. Then we have side profiles for all your stencils along here, and then all your stencils and decals for your fuel tanks, your pylons, and your weapons. So some nice call outs on that. And then you have your different loadouts that you can do. For me, I'm going to do something like this one right here, where it has the GBUs and then the alarm missiles and then the AIM-120s on the side and your two sensors up forward. And then here we have our parts call out. They are nice and numbered, so if you're having a hard time finding something, you can go to here and it is nice and labeled, so you don't have an issue with that. You do come with the photo etch parts, some metal parts, your clear part, and then all your other plastic sprues. Moving on to the decals, there are a lot of stencils on this kit, and you basically have one sheet of just stencils and then another sheet that has even more stencils and your tail flash decals. So we'll go over that one in a second, but there is nice decals, and they do have them all separately labeled, so if you're working on your fuel tank, you know exactly this one right here, this little block is for your 600-gallon wing tanks, or your lightning pod. You come around here and you can find it somewhere around here. Don't know where it is. And also on here, as a bonus, there is remove before flight tags. So with these, what I would do is I would get some aluminum foil. I'd lay these on the aluminum foil and then fold the foil so it is good to go. And then after that is done and glued and dry, just trimming around that, and then you can bend it and fold it to how you want them to shape and look like they're actually blowing in the wind. So some very nice decals on there. They are printed by Academy, it looks like. So I know sometimes, I'm pretty sure their decals are usually pretty good on that. And then for the other decal sheet, again, some very nice decals on here. Your different options for your tail flash, the bats. I believe this is Negre, or I can't remember what it's called, but Negev. You have Negev, bat, Knights of the Orange Tail, and then the one. So for me, I'm thinking it's either between the bats or Negev. So again, very nice. And I also do have the paint stencils from DN Models. That includes the Star of David and also the camo call out for this. I'm not sure if it has any of the masks for the tail flash. We will find out at the end of the video. Alright, so inside this box what you get is your clear parts, some metal tubes or metal pieces, and then another set of clear parts. Then nothing in there. So nicely they have clear parts and tinted parts in here. Go over the tinted canopy. Thought it was broke there for a second. You do have a seam line going all the way down the middle of the fuselage or the main canopy. That's again very easy to take care of, no real issue there. And then you have your other clear parts along here that are tinted, so I'll probably be using the canopy for the canopy, but then again using the actual clear parts for the clear parts. And then here you have some nice metal angle of attack sensors and your nose pitot tube. Again, very nice. And then some photo etch on here. I'm not sure on what these are. These look like flash or flare and chaff dispensers along here. And then the bases of some sensors that would be going down. Alright, so starting off we have a double sprue here. Some very nice, this is your weapons details, and some very nice detail on these weapons and pylons and fuel tanks. Some raised edges on these fuel tanks, some very nice detail on those. So I do have the Kopecky models fuel tanks. I'm not sure, I'm thinking I might use the Kopeckys versus this, but they are very nice. And then the GBUs, again, very nice detail on them for the framing, and then some raised rivet detail. I do have the flying leathernecks GBUs that we'll be going over. They are basically two pieces, so you get the front section here and then the tail section, and you glue those together. So we will be going over those again at the end of the video. But with this kit armament, they do look very nice. The AMRAAMs, and I think these look like Sidewinders and not alarm missiles. So yeah, we'll be going over all that here later. And this is a double sprue. Alright, moving on, we got the ones for our wings, and the detail on this actually looks, I'd say, better than the Tamiya F-16s. Honestly, I am surprised on how nice the detail is on these wings. Look at the rivet detail on there. That is absolutely amazing. And yeah, I would say this detail on here is better than the detail that's on the Academy kit, or not the Academy, the Tamiya kit. So very nice detail on that. And then moving on to here, we have what looks like our cockpit sidewalls along here. Again, very nice detail on those both. And then your cockpit tub over here, again, very nice detail on there. The switch detail. Probably some of the nicest ejection molding cockpit details I've seen. So, and then with your conformal tanks, again, some very nice raised and recessed rivet lines and panel lines and all that. And then again with this, I think this is your sprue for your, or this is your vertical stabilizer for the Sufa. So some very nice detail on there. And then you have your instrument combings. Again, very, very nice detail on those as well. And your seat belt, or your seats, again, they look amazing for ejection molding. And then on this, the APX, this is also very nice, and the vents on here are nice. I'm thoroughly shocked. Alright, so we have another sprue. It's just another double sprue with your weapons. You do have your alarm missiles right here, and those do look very nice. I'm not going to pull them out of the bag, but again, your GBUs again look very nice on here, and your fuel tanks and all that. So again, some very nice detail on that, and I'm actually surprised. Alright, so moving on to your next sprue. Alright, so we have our Lightning 2 pod right here. Again, very nice detail on it, and getting that, and the seam line where you're going to have to sand it down is nowhere near the detail of right in here, so that's not going to be an issue. And then getting all that done, then there are going to be some clear parts in there that are going to come out very nice. So I am very, very impressed by this kit, and the spinal hump for all the additional electronics that the Sufa got. Again, some very, very nice detail on there. We'll have to see how it compares to the Israelcast. spinal hump that I got coming to see what the difference is. And then also the conversion or correction set does have a few of these bulbs to change out as well. So again, some very nice detail. The one problem is with the nose being two parts right here, there is a raised edge that goes all the way down. I don't know if that's supposed to be there or if they added that piece to help with sanding down and getting rid of the seam line. So, but again, some very nice detail and a nice texture on that nose. So again, and then on the inside there's no detail and no detail on that, and then you have all your ejection pin marks in areas that are not going to be an issue. Alright, and then your neck sprue. Alright, we have our canopy railing right here, and then the outside of our landing gear doors, and then your wheels. Wheels actually do look very nice on here, and your main landing gear. I don't see any ejection pin marks on there. You do have your gun, and then some more parts. Your front nose landing gear. The detail on the intake does look very nice. Again, I'm very surprised on how nice this is, and let's get this turned around. The interior of the landing gear doors, again, no ejection pin. Wait. Alright, so you do have two ejection pin marks right there. That's not too bad. Those will be easy to sand out. There is not much detail to the inside of the canopy railing on there, but that's not going to be an issue. And then you have the inside of your speed brakes. There are some ejection pin marks on the inside of your speed brakes, but you do have the option to have it closed if you would like. And then on your nose landing gear doors, so there are two of them. I don't know if there's a difference between the two. One of them does look larger than the other one, so we'll have to be careful on which one we use. And then you have the difference between a large mouth and a small mouth intake right here. Again, very nice. Alright, so moving right along, we have this is for your main landing gear well right here. This would be the ceiling of your landing gear well. The intakes look very nice and smooth. No ejector pin marks on the insides of those, so that's very nice. Your cockpit, your front instrument panel right in here, again, very nice. And your instrument combing for your, looks like your Wizzo back here. The fan blades do look very nice. Oh, there's actually fan blades in there, so you're going to paint this and get that washed up, and it's going to look absolutely brilliant. So, and then your cockpit tub, that's for the F-16C, so you're not going to be worried about that. And then flipping this around for your nose landing gear section, again, some basic framing detail on there, but with how low this landing gear sits, you're not really going to be able to see in there. So that's not really a huge issue. Now with this main landing gear section, there is a couple ejector pin marks in here, but I do have the Aries landing gear set, so we'll give that a shot and see how that looks. Alright, so now we're moving on to, we have our 300-gallon belly fuel tank right here. Some nice, it's a complex shape to that. That's very nicely molded. And then we have the other lighting pod here. The windows on it are solid, so I think I would prefer the other one. And then we have our other sensors along here. Some of them go on the 16C, and I believe this one goes on the Sufa. So we'll have to give that a check. Moving on, you have your radar dish and the arm that keeps your nose open, and then the ECM pod here, and then your turkey feathers for your engines, which go over here. Some nice detail in there, but like I say, I always have aftermarket. The interior of the jet exhaust does look very nice. No ejector pin marks in there, so some nice detail in there. Some nice raised framing in there as well. Alright, so in this brew we have a couple different figures. We have some pilots that are standing right here, and then the ground crew in cold weather gear, it looks like. And then the bodies, they look decent. And then you have two different options here for your helmets. You have a standard helmet right here, and then you have the helmet with the specialized visor on it. So again, very nice. And then some more sensors and pylons on here, and then some fan blades for your engine. Again, some very nice detail. And then your ladder along here. Ladder does look very nice. Again, there's a center seam line on the rungs, but that's not going to be an issue to get sanded out. And then on this brew we have another set of pilots. So again, same thing. Crew member looks like he's in cold weather gear with a heavy jacket. And then we have a few different heads for the pilots right here. Let's see if you can. But yeah, so, and then this guy has like he's having his helmet bag over his shoulder. So some decent detail on there, but not too bad. Alright, let's get into the fuselage of this kit, and this detail on here. Again, I'm thinking it might be better than Tamiya. Honestly, I'm thinking it might be better. There is a little bit of flash right here along this part, but that is, I mean, it's a quick swipe with a knife and that's taken care of. So I'm just amazed on how good this kit looks for a Academy kit. I know I shouldn't be surprised, but compared to Tamiya, they're right on par with the Tamiya F-16. So you are going to have some holes to drill up here, and on the other side they do have the placement for your drill along here, so you're not questioning on where you need to drill. Alright, so going through the instructions on these, you have two different options, your tactical version and your training version. Of course I'm going to do the tactical version. Why would you want a dud on a missile or on the aircraft? Just that's my point of view, but for models at least. So you have two different nose cones to add for your options here, and then your body, the rocket booster, and then your tail fins on here. Alright, so we'll go through the parts of the AMRAAM. So this is the main body of the AMRAAM. Again, some very, very nice detail on here, and they do look superb when they are painted up and assembled. Then the nose cones, again, very nice on the nose cones. And this is probably the best part, and why I get this out of everything, is the rocket motors for this kit. So you have two options. You have one that's blanked off, like it's sitting at on the hard stand right here. Then you have one that's open and ready for mission. Some very nice detail, bolt detail in there, and then you're going to fit your fins in these holes. It's going to look very nice. Alright, so then we have these GBU 32 1,000-pound JDAMs from Flying Leathernecks. I absolutely love his 3D printed stuff. It's absolutely great resin to work with, easy to assemble, easy to paint. There's no issues with any of it, and we'll go off by that. So we'll pull out one bomb, one missile, and or one bomb and one tail, and the different fuses that you get. Alright, so looking at the bomb, this is one of the smooth bore ones. You do have the option to get one with the thermally protected coating on it, so, and that is nice and textured on those. But this is the smooth bomb, so very nice detail on there. No issues with that, and it does come with a paint mask, so you're not going to have any issues painting this part or these parts right here. So that's very nice. And then your tail section, again, very nice. There's no issues with that. Some nice raised rivet detail all along here. So, and then to just assemble this kit, you just take your top and your two sides and you pop them in together, and that's all done. And that is straight out of the package. I haven't done any prep work to it or anything. So these are, like I said, straight out of the box. They are ready to go. And the other beautiful thing about this is you can paint this piece separate and this piece separate and not have to worry about masking off this part when you're painting the front section green. So then we have our different fuses along here. So you have this block off cone right here. I think this is your armor piercing or bunker piercing fuse along in here, and then the laser designator or GPS fuse in here. Again, very nice detail, and also the fact that they are separate and they are coned, so you can paint them separate and then attach them at the very end when you're doing your final assembly of the bomb. And you get 2 of those with this box. Alright, and like the Tamiya build, I do have the Kopecky fuel tanks for this, and it does come with the pylons. We'll have to see on how well these fit, these connection points fit for the Academy kit, or if we're going to have to cut those off and then drill in new brass rods. But these do look very nice for the detail. So, and then the fuel tank comes in 3 sections. So this is the tail section right here. Again, very nice detail on there. Raised rivets, the recessed panel lines, and then these are where your fins will go in. And then again, with the main body of the fuse or of the fuel tank, again, some very nice detail on there as well. See if I can get it to zoom in or focus. Come on, focus. There we go. And then your nose cone for that fuel tank. Again, very nice detail on that. I would say that Academy's fuel tanks are right on par with these. These are just a little bit better. Alright, so up next I have the DN models F-16I, F-16D Barkeet painting mask for this. So it's gonna really help making sure that I get the camo scheme right on this. And that's all your color callouts and where each stencil goes. Then on the opposite side you have your call out for all your stencils, and they're actually numbered so you know where to put them. Like I said, it does come with the Star of David on here as your paint stencils, but it does not come with the tail flash. So you'll get the camo done, but you'll have to use the decals for the actual tail set. So that is very nice. And then it has a couple other notes down here. 20 to 26 are for the left conformal fuel tank, 27 to 30 are for the right conformal tank, pieces 50 through 56 are for the dorsal spine. So that's very nice on that. So again, nice detail. I'm looking forward to using this, and it's really going to help. Alright, so up next we have the Academy F-16CG/CJ Block 4050 exhaust nozzle for the Academy kit. Let's take a look at this and see how this looks. I'm sure it's going to look absolutely amazing, like always. So we have our instructions. We have a photo etch piece in here. And then looking at the resin parts. So inside the exhaust, the nice ribbed detail in there, that's going to come out very nice. And then your fan blades for that, which are very nice. The turkey feathers, again, the detail on this, it's the same as the set for the Tamiya F-16. Same detail on that. It just looks absolutely amazing. This is for the ring it's all going to fit into. And then this is the interior of your jet exhaust. So again, some super nice detail in there, and you get that all painted up with your Arctic gray and your suit black. That's going to look absolutely awesome. Alright, then I have a mask for the F-16I, again from Flying Leathernecks decals, for the canopy and the wheel mask. So again, there's a little bit of shrinkage on here, but it shouldn't be too bad to deal with. Then we have the Havglass 2 anti-reflective coating for your F-16I. I don't see much anti-reflective coating on here. I don't know if it shows up in the camera. There's a little bit of a purple tint to it, but not by much. Now, is this better than the Uber Clear part or the overly tinted canopy? Yes, so I will be definitely using this canopy instead, because it does have a little bit of a purple sheen to it. Alright, up next we have our wheels for the F-16 Sufa, and these wheels do look a lot better than the kit wheels with the sidewall writing on here and the tread depth and everything. Those look great. And then your front main wheel hubs, those also look great. And then your brake disc along here, again, look absolutely amazing. And then for your front tire, again, some nice detail in there as well, and your locking nut for your front wheel. Then on the front wheel, it's just a smaller version of the main wheel. Again, some nice raised lettering on the sidewall and all that, and you can actually read it all the way down to the tire pressures. Alright, so we have our wheelbase from Aries right here. Again, super nice detail in there. That's really going to liven up real nice in there. You just have a casting block to cut off here, and from what I've read, this is a drop and fit piece, so no issues with the fit on that from what I've heard. Now if I find out different, I'll be sure to let y'all know, but yeah, no issues with that. And then on the front landing gear bay, again, 100 million times more detail than what was in the kit part. Are you going to be able to see any of it? Most likely not, unless you flip the aircraft over, but if you do flip it over, it's there. Alright, last up we got the Wolfpack F-16I IDF Sufa cockpit set for the Academy kit, and in my opinion this is an absolute must-have for this kit. So because with it being such a large cockpit that's opened up, you're going to have a lot of detail that's in there. The kit parts look great, but this I know is going to look even better. So we'll go through the instructions and everything first. Again, open it up. This nice paper on here. You have your parts call out here, and then your seats with the molded in seat belts. Me personally, I like those seat belts better. I'm not a fan of photo etched seat belts. Then you have a couple parts to remove on the ejection seat, and then some other parts here. You have to cut off this casting block down here and then remove these bottom holes right here. So if you're going to use this, I think this might be the holes that you need to drill for the, or wait, that's for the bottom fuselage. Maybe, we'll see. But moving on, you got more parts, more detail parts all in there. Your rudder pedals, your throttle, and your control stick all along in there. So, and then more control sticks and such in the rear cockpit. Then moving on, you're adding in the back pieces of your ejection seat, and then you're adding your ejection seats in afterwards. Then your front instrument panel, getting all those pieces in and moving right along. So you're going to have a lot of pieces. You might have to thin down this this rail that goes right along the edge of the cockpit, but that's not going to be too bad, and you have a little bit of a cut of a frame to do right along in there. So, and then you have your sidewalls for your cockpit over here, some more detail to add for that. And it has a nice little part about glare shields. Please combine some part for the front and rear glare shields, sidewalls, and elbow rests. You can add the opened elbow rest to the sidewalls. Alright, that's nice detail. Alright, so continuing on. Alright, this detail on this kit, the cockpit of this looks absolutely amazing. From the switch detail to the padding on the floor right here, that is absolutely amazing detail. All the way along, and then sadly you're going to cover up all this detail with the ejection seat, but you can still paint it because you never know, somebody might look at it just in the right angle to see it. But again, amazing detail on here. And then you're going to have this rather large casting block to cut off, so that's going to be a lot. Then in here, I'm not going to take these out of these bags, but you have your ejection seats. Again, some nice detail on the seats. You can see some texture to the actual padding of the seats on here, and then your instrument combings, your instrument panels, all that. Does not come with decals, so if you need decals, you can get some from Anyz, ANYZ, and they have nice decals for inside the cockpit. Again, some very, very nice detail on all these little resin parts to go in here. So this is going to make this absolutely amazing. Alright, so that does it for this unboxing of the Academy 132nd F-16I Sufa. And I'm just going to say, I am honestly blown away from the detail from this kit. I think that the detail on this kit is better than the Tamiya F-16. I just did a review on that last week, and the detail on this actually looks crisper and sharper. The plastic looks better. Everything I know the Tamiya kit is an older kit, but still, it's like I am honestly surprised on how good this kit goes. It looks, and we'll see here in a little bit on how it builds. This is literally my next project up. As soon as I'm done with the Neptune, I'm going to be getting this one out on the bench and probably by the weekend is looking. So my pre-build rating on this right now is an 8 out of 10 or 8.5 out of 10. It's almost a 9. There were a few ejection pin marks on here and there, but yeah, it looks absolutely amazing. I can't wait to build it, and with all the aftermarket. So make sure that you are subscribed and get those notifications to follow this build along. But that will do it for this video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If you're returning or new, hit that bell button so you get reminders of when I post new content. And until next time, have a great day and stay frosty.